Yo, we can make it together, people. Trinity Force Podcast. These boys are second to none. Now that's the end of the intro. It's time we begun.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Trinity Force podcast. We have this is a Patreon episode, and we have an interview with Alan from U.GG, and we have John and Kaib to help me along the way with this. So, Alan, thanks for coming on. How's your day been, man?
It's been good so far. I don't know, just a regular work day, making sure the lights are still on.
Nice.
Uh, so yeah.
Yeah, and we appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us. So, I mean, let's not dilly-dally. Let's get right into this because we're super excited to talk to you. So, first off, I guess, how did you get into U.GG? How'd you get into gaming in general, and what game brought you to that, if a specific game did? Just tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into working with the company.
Mhm. Yeah, so I've basically been a long time just video game player. So I started playing games. My earliest memory would be like when I was 4 and my dad got me a Super Nintendo. So I've owned probably like every generation of consoles. So like Super Nintendo, N64, GameCube, Xbox 360, and now I have a PS5, and I also had a PC because I want to make sure I had the full breadth of game consoles. Um, and I started playing League my freshman year of college when it was season one, and I just got hooked on the game. I definitely probably got worse grades than I should have got in college because of League of Legends. And I played League throughout college. Um, I actually wanted to be a game developer when I graduated. I had offer from two places. So one was Zynga, and then two was the options trading firm. And I decided that I liked money more than I wanted to make Zynga games. So I decided to work at an options trading firm for 2 years.
You didn't want to make more.
Um,
You didn't want to help Mafia Wars continue to dominate the.
nah, I went to the interview and I was like, this is like, yeah, I get to make games, but like, I just don't like Farmville that much. Um, So then I was like, okay, cool. Like let's like figure out this finance stuff. Finance sounds cool. Like in a way, finance is a game too, when you look at the stock market. So I was like, okay, like maybe I'll learn something. Um, but after 2 years there, me and my co-founder, who was my roommate at the time, we found that even though life was great, like we were making money and stuff like that, it was when we were spending our free time, it wasn't like going out, it was just playing like League on the weekends. Like that's what we were doing. And we are still hanging out with our friends by playing League of Legends. And what kind of really made us decide to like quit our jobs and pursue some like esports type startups is we went to the LCS finals in at Madison Square Garden, which was like CLG versus TSM, and I was a big TSM fan at the time, and then they got like 3-0'd. And so it's very devastating. And then my co-founder Shingo just like ragged on me for the entire trip back. But we went to the event and we found that there were so many people there. And we were so there's the crowd was so energetic, and we're like, why don't we build something for people that play video games? Because that's where we spent a lot of our time or our free time. So it just made sense. Like, what if we do something in that space? So we quit our jobs, and we just started working on like esports related products. We're like, we want to be in esports, but we don't know what to do. And this is obviously what most people in startup world tell you not to do, but we're like, whatever, like we'll just figure it out. Um, so we built a couple of different products that ultimately failed. So we spent like about a year just building random stuff that didn't really work out. And then eventually we got onto U.GG. And the reason why we kind of started it was we saw that there were other apps in the space like Mobalytics and Champion. When I was playing a lot of League, I used Champion GG, Pro Builds, as well as OP.GG. What I found was that Champion GG specifically was lagging. Like they wouldn't update their champion stats until like 3 days after a patch hit,
Hmm.
and they also had some of their roles seem to be messed up. Oh, should we fix the
Just waiting for. I think Kai might have had some issue here, but we can keep going. Yeah, he's back.
oh,
Keep going. Yeah,
okay.
I've never heard of Champion.gg. I actually am gonna look it up
Oh,
right now.
really?
No, I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, they got acquired by Blitz.gg now, or they're acquired by TSM, and Blitz.gg owns them, but now they're like kind of dead. Their site's kind of dead right now.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
on it right now, and it's definitely not as good as your site, I will say.
yeah.
Oh, and
So
actually, I
we,
looked up. Actually, sorry to interrupt you again.
Mhm.
I looked up myself, like my own profile, and it referred me directly to Blitz.gg. So they're
Mhm.
not even using the site anymore.
Yeah. So, also what I noticed was that on Champion GG they were incorrectly assigning roles, and so what I saw was they were saying Aurelion Sol was a jungler because probably he's like roaming a lot in the early game. But I knew it was wrong because he wasn't running Smite. Like the build that they recommended wasn't with Smite, so it's like it just doesn't make any sense. So then we decided, hey, why don't we do this and we can do it better, make it correct, make it fast, and give the data that people want. And so that's how we made u.gg. Initially, we were called yougetgood.com, and then nobody could spell get good. So we're like, all right, just u.gg. Let's just make it u.gg. Everyone can spell it, and we'll be shorter than OPGG. We'll be the shortest URL possible known to mankind. So that's how the kind of story of u.gg happened.
Okay, that's really sweet. Yeah, thanks for running us through all of that. Yeah, it's just, I mean, that's a really cool story of how it all got founded. And then what for those early projects, and then for the start of u.gg, were you guys doing the coding yourselves to set it up, or were you, like hiring or outsourcing some of like the coding to start up the projects?
Yeah, I think for like the beginning projects, it was basically me for the projects before u.gg.
Hmm.
Once we started getting into u.gg, we had a little bit of funding based on our previous projects. So it was mostly three developers to start that built the first iteration of u.gg, including myself. Yep.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so um, what would you say? Uh, like what's the mission and the core of the company? Like you talked about bringing stats to some people and doing it better than some other sites that weren't doing it as well as they should be. But like, what's the mission of the company, really?
So we try to simplify it and just be like UGG provides stats to help players win more at League of Legends. Before I would say we were very focused at tier lists and builds is where we kind of started,
Mhm.
and now we're moving into profiles, live game, the other kind of tools that exist in the League of Legends ecosystem, and we're trying to gather all of those. So, but we want to have the best stats to make you win more.
Okay, gotcha. I definitely find that I like you. I didn't ask you on because I like u.gg more than otherwise. Because I mean, I and most people have tried multiple different sites of what they prefer and different client overlays too. If people go for them, I personally like u.gg the most. But um, yeah, I think it's great, and you definitely have been accomplishing that mission somewhat, or for the most part. I didn't
Yeah,
mean
Eric's a homer. Eric tries to get everybody in community game not to use it.
Yeah. Well, you should. It's the greatest. It's
I
the greatest website.
And whenever we're doing patch notes as well, when we run through that stuff, I have it on the screen as well for the stream, and then I'm looking at, like, oh, this because we're usually recording the like after the patch has already dropped, like seeing, okay, so how did they do, how did this champion do this patch, and how did they do that patch, and just comparing them across, and I use your application for it because it's like it's got great fonts and things like that, and it is very clear to the eye, but it also gets across the information you're looking at pretty effectively. Yeah.
Okay, Eric, you
What's
knew
up?
that I was going to ask this.
What's up?
Okay, so Alan, to become completely converted,
Hmm.
first off, anytime I go on any of the browser sites like op.gg or u.gg, always prefer u.gg, of course.
Hmm.
However, personally, I have been using Blitz
Hmm.
application.
Hmm.
And the only reason I use Blitz, and Eric calls me an idiot because of this, is because I have a vertical monitor. And for whatever,
Oh,
Oh, he dropped out. Well, see, he was gonna say, hey, oh, there you go. You're
oh yeah.
back, Kyb.
okay, that's happened twice now. I'm not sure what's going on.
You could just keep your video off if it's a bandwidth issue, then perhaps.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, the only reason that I've been using Blitz is because of the vertical monitor. And when I pull up the u.gg app, it will only allow me to see like a third of this. It only occupies like a third of the screen, and it doesn't stretch the way it
Gotcha.
will. So if,
Okay.
if,
We will
if
fix that. We will fix that for you.
I will switch the second it's implemented.
Okay. We will make sure that it works for vertical monitors as
Let's
well.
go.
Yeah, I didn't think we were gonna turn this into our gripes about u.gg or whatever, but yeah, I
Oh
mean
no,
that's
yeah.
It's not a it's not necessarily a gripe, but a way to get more users.
I know, and that's what I like to hear. I want to figure out how to get more users.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, like, yeah, I have noticed. I have it on the screen right now. Is there's some issue I like was trying to figure out a good way to put our video and the app alongside, but there is some restriction on some of the overlay, and it's on the screen right now, and I'm just showing this right here. But yeah, there are some issues with that. Oh, Jesus, I minimized everything accidentally. Um, but overall, like, it's still. I think it provides the best analytics of what I've seen across, but um talking since Kai brought it up a little earlier than I was planning on, but it's all good. What how do you? Well, I guess first off, stats. Like, where does it come from? Where do these stats come from? Does Riot
Yeah.
release them? Do they send you spreadsheets? Like, is that how it works? Like, where does it all come from?
Yeah. So everyone gets their stats from the same source, which is Riot. They have an API. So they provide like an API key that every developer has access to, and each API key has a rate limit for how many matches you can pull at a specific point in time. I'd say of the big players like Blitz, OPGG, U.GG, probably like Lawlytics, Mobalytics as well. Everyone has like the similar rate limit, and everyone's grabbing the stats from Riot Games.
So when you're saying rate limit, does that mean like the amount that are you paying them for that, or is that like a download speed, or what is that?
Oh no, that's just like the speed for the API. So let's say you can get 500 calls per 10 seconds.
Hmm.
Just like you can't pull every single stat like all at one time because it would probably like break Riot servers.
Sure.
Um, so they just have like a cap on how much data you can transfer at some point in time, kind of like a bandwidth cap or something like that.
Okay. Interesting. That's
Mhm.
pretty cool. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah, I was curious about where it gets its data from. So then, outside of that, where they give you, well, I guess for the key, do they give it out for free to the big players, or do you have to, pay them monthly? Like, how do you
Yeah.
have
So
that key?
there's no fee for the key. It actually used to be I would say probably like I want to say 5 years ago. It was very open. They really wanted to support third-party applications. So pretty much anybody could apply for, like you have to make an application for the key,
Sure.
and then you'll get a key. It was a lot more open to everyone. Now you can still make an application for a key. I feel like the process is a little bit more limited, um, and they want to keep the scope smaller. But I believe it's still possible if you make an application for a key, you can go to the developer portal right now and then make an application for some project you want to work on, and they'll approve or deny your request.
Okay. Gotcha.
Um, for basic use cases, there's like a development key. So you can use the development key, but the problem is that the rate limit is really low. It's like something like 10 calls per second or something. So it's really hard to get like the aggregated statistics of all the matches played. Like you can get a sample, like you could get just Eric's matches, for example. But it'd
Those
be
are the
hard
only
to
ones
get.
that matter. That's all that people
Yeah,
need.
yeah. So you can just base your tier list off of what Eric played, and then it'll be fine.
Okay. So what's that outside of that, the key that you have with them? What does your relationship look like with Riot? Do they have like offices dedicated to helping improve the quality of data or specific stats that you're looking for, or like what does that relationship look like?
Yeah. I think before they had a specific team that did like third-party development. So we worked pretty closely with someone called Gene Chorba at the time and Riot Tuxedo. So they were on this team to work with third-party relationships. Recently, I believe they've been moved off of that team, or that team no longer exists. But we still have a point of contact at Riot that we talk to regularly to approve features for the app, or like to discuss things. So like when we implement jungle timers or spell trackers, we're like, is this okay? Like, can we do this, or is this fine? Like, what works within your guidelines? So we try to make sure we are preemptive in asking for these things. But things are subject to change. Like they might say, next week, like jungle timers, no, like nobody should have jungle timers. Nobody should have the duo tags, stuff like that. It's up to their restrictions, but we just try to keep an active communication to make sure that we're not going to get any players banned for using the UGG app.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm glad that I won't get banned for that, because when recently, like in the last few months, when you implemented the summoner spell tracker, I was like, oh, this feels like it's a little bit more than that, because it almost seems like when you watch YouTube videos of people that are scripting, like they get that automatically tracked. I was like, this isn't. I'm not scripting or anything, but this feels a little bit like I don't know if this would be allowed, but I'm glad to hear that you do that. I won't get banned for that selfishly.
Yeah, we definitely asked it back and forth for the summoner spell tracker. What we found, like we saw some other apps using or making one, so we're like, okay, if they can make it, like, can we make it? Because I think it's helpful, but at the same time, it is like bordering on that line of, well, now you don't have to count flash timers and stuff like that. So we want to make sure, but we also want to be on that line of, well, if it is allowed, then we should give it to our users. But if they say it's not allowed, we'll take it off. But it doesn't feel like we should prevent our users from having the same features that other apps have if it gives them some benefits.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's pretty easy to like, take off if you don't want to have it there too. Which is like,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, and even like I know that when I stream for community nights or otherwise or whatever, they're not that those overlays are not being shown directly on my stream, and maybe that's just a setting that I would have to change. But by default, then if someone's streaming, then they're not getting, it's not like they could be stream sniped or anything to
Mhm.
see the jungle tracking, or that they're using these summoner spells to interrupt a lot more of what they're seeing, which is also nice as well. Yeah, like there's been stuff that I've turned off, but and have at default where you have to hold tab or show and hide. Like there's a lot of good customization for if people don't want too much information or too little. But yeah, I like the overlay a lot. So I guess speaking in because we were talking about other stat sites a little bit. So how do you think that U.GG ranks up to its competitors? I mean, the ones that come to mind for me are Professor, Mobalytics, and OP.GG. You mentioned Lawlytics, and Blitz as well. But like, how do you think you stack up? And then what are areas that you'd like to improve, or just open question like that? What do you think?
Mhm. Yeah, so when we started out with U.GG, I think one of our main benefits was like the simplicity of the design. Um, at the time, this was before Mobilix actually has their builds the way that we have them. But at the time, I feel like OPGG offered two different types of builds. They had like highest pick rate and highest win rate build, which is kind of what they might have still. And we thought, hey, what if we just found one build to recommend to players per champion, per role? So we really wanted to make the design easy to and fit on one page. So the problem that we were fixing was a player when they enter into champion select, let's say you're like the last player or something, you kind of want to be able to pick all your runes and all your setup in like 30 seconds or less. So we want to display the information from top to bottom. Here's your runes, here's your summoners, here's like your skill tree, here's your items, and we want to display that really succinctly. So I think that's where we started. And then what we actually found really quickly was that people wanted to play whatever they wanted to play. So that's why we have so many filters on like, here's Plat Plus, here's like different roles. When we launched U.GG, we actually only pick the most popular roles. So for example, if it was Rengar, we're like, okay, like Rengar has jungle and maybe top lane, right? But doesn't play ADC or support. So or like it's low game count, so we'll just like not show
yeah.
those. But then people were asking, they're like, hey, I really want like a Taric ADC build. And we're like, what? Like why? Why does this person want Taric ADC? But then we're like, why not? Like just give them like we only have 5 games of Taric ADC, but you know what? Here you go. Here's the best Taric ADC build that we have. So I think that kind of put us apart from other people where it's like whatever you want to play, we'll give it to you. We can't guarantee that it's actually good, but like we'll try to give you something. So that's why you can see like the number of build diversity.
Yeah.
I think we're. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, since you brought up, I was just been like, while you've been talking, I've been putting up the different parts of the application on the screen here and showing what you're talking about, like highlighting it as you're talking about it. But I looked up Taric ADC. So far on this patch, there are eight. There are 8 matches, and you say it's not good, but it has a 50% win rate. So, I mean,
Okay.
that's better than a
May-
lot of stuff that people play on the regular.
Yeah. So that's why like our users know best.
But it does
Um.
display the little triangle that says low sample size,
Mhm.
and that's that
Yeah.
warning you're
People
talking
what
about.
they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. People want. I think like we started out being. I don't know if you guys play Magic the Gathering, but they have like this they have like their categories of players like spikes. Spikes are players that want to win, and we kind of focused on those players first. So we thought, hey, people want to play top tier list champions, and they want to play builds with high win rates. But then when we actually built out that product, people are like, nah, we want that fringe stuff. Like we want to play. I want to play. You're a um Rengar engraved player. So it's like we give you what it specifically you want, whether or not Rengar is good on this patch or not. But to answer your question, you said you're asking about what do compares do well.
Yeah.
I think OPGG has always been great for profiles, and so we have been really trying to improve our profile offerings. We were one of the first people to make LP per game as part of our application. There's still some issues with it that we're ironing out. Like we sometimes like have some issues where we have question mark for our LPs. But we're gonna fix that. And we also um, tried to make design improvements. Um, but profiles is a tough one because OPGG has been so good in that space for so long. I feel like they're like the Coca-Cola of profiles,
Yeah.
and it's just like hard to transfer players over. Similarly, I think Porfest is really good for live game. Their tags are great. So we want to see if we can also have great tags or improve that live game experience. And um, I think Mobalytics has a pretty good app, um, from what I understand in terms of performance. So that's things that we care about for our app is now that we have the basic functionality down, we want to nail those other features like making it work on vertical screens or different monitors and making sure the performance doesn't affect players.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great rundown, and I've been looking up some of what you've been saying. I will say, as I looked, I'm just using Kaib's match history so if people can see that, I've just been using his match history on all the different sites, um, and he's doing okay, but as to be expected. But
No, no. Okay.
I
Yeah,
hope you're ready
don't
for
don't
the
even
whole world
say
to
that.
see.
You have to bring up the fact that I popped off on a Victor game earlier.
really, do you mean the
And
one where you lost 14 LP according to U.GG?
yes, and I also went like 15 and 3 and 10, and my jungle and top ran it down when a Kane built Gore Drinker, and then Dead Man's Plate and Titanic Hydra.
Yeah, I see
So
that.
I'm not taking credit for that loss, even though I should.
I mean, you were ranked as the MVP of your team, I will say, but you still lost 14 LP, and the previous game to that, previous ranked game, you also lost 14 LP. So
I know it's a sad time.
yeah, and this U.GG is the only one I'm seeing with the LP per game that are on there. Like Mobalytics has it on there, but on those games where I'm looking, it's got the question mark, and it's due to Riot API call limits, as you were saying, there might be some issues there. But yeah, so okay, since we're talking about the scores and stuff, so Kaib got a 91 on that game. I'm not asking about this game specifically, but he says that he carried, and there would be some stats that would work towards that. Like, he had a high CS per minute, he had a high damage per minute, he had a high KDA. But we were talking about this a little bit before we went live. What sort of stuff goes into those calculations about the carry score, how well you did?
Hmm. Yeah, so we have a couple of guys that put a lot of thought into what actually makes you carry a game. Eric on our team, who kind of designed the carry score, thought about these 6 areas that are labeled in the scoring tab of gold share, damage share, level difference, kill participation, vision score, and efficiency. How it works in the background is gold share. Most of these things are objective. It's like your gold share is a number of how much gold that you got in this game compared to the rest of your teammates. But then we take that number and compare to your elo and also how many minutes into the game you are. So when we compare your goal share, we're trying to compare it to something very similar of all of the matches that are your elo and um, of the same game length. Because goal share at 10 minutes can be very different from goal share at like 50 minutes, for
Sure.
example. Once we do that, we create like a normal distribution of what those games are expected to be and see how many standard deviations that you range from the normal. So I believe that there are instances where you can get up like for 100 is like the cap. I think we might cap it off at 100. In the past, we played around with what if you could exceed the cap and be like 110, something like that. But I'm not sure if it overdoes the cap now. I think like it's like if you're too many standard deviations above, we're just like, okay, you're 100, like you're good. Um, and then we average all of these stats together to get your carry score. But I guess the main thing is that we make sure we try to compare your match to matches that are similar to yours.
Gotcha. Okay. So as of at least your current build, I do see that you can go over 100 because I have 102 on a
Yeah.
Fiddlesticks game from 2 weeks ago. I
Okay.
will say.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had 103 on one game.
Yeah. Okay, so then it is possible that we just calculate the standard deviations above, and we normalize it at 75. So if
Okay.
you have, two standard deviations above, um, 50, the 50 normally that is a normal distribution is just a 75,
Sure.
and then you calculate the rest.
Wow. So then I'm feeling a lot less good about my game I played earlier, where I have a 77. I mean, we stomped. I was playing Pantheon Jungle, which feels decent, by the way, but I got a 77, and I thought I was playing a lot better than I did, but apparently not. But that's why these sort of stats, and that's why this is really helpful to see, because it gives you further
Mhm.
insight on what you did well, what you didn't do well on, and comparatively.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the stats are, I would say like our approach is, um, it can kind of normalize more because we're using these normalized distributions. So having a 75 isn't bad, especially when your teammates are doing well.
Yeah.
Like our stats like gold share, damage share, if everybody else is doing hella damage, but you're also doing hella damage, you can still have an average damage score just because everyone on your team is doing well.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point to bring up. I appreciate that.
Wait,
Mhm.
Eric,
What's up?
you said your carry score was what?
I thought it was 77 on my most recent game.
No, you said you had a Fiddlesticks of a 10 what?
102.
And John, you had what?
I mean, this game was. Wow.
On vision score, right? On one particular stat.
Oh, okay. No, I'm looking at like the overall score.
Yeah, my overall was 102.
Oh. Oh yeah, then you really carried. Did you feel like you
Yo.
really carried that game?
For
That
my
game,
for
yeah.
mine, yes, but their Elise jungle was also running it down and literally inting after a little bit when she didn't get ahead because I tracked her and then counter ganked her and stuff. So I had some assistance, but yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna need you guys to get your carry scores up, okay? Because you see, if you look at my profile, you'll see a fat 106 here on a Lux mid game, baby.
Okay,
I'm
that's
just gonna ignore the fact that it's in silver. That's not important.
it doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're doing good for your like the stats show how you're doing, as Alan said, compared to people playing similar stuff and in your respective elos. So even if it's in silver, silver is where most of the players are. It's silver gold. That's where most of the player base is.
I'm average.
Yeah.
you're above average in silver. You're
My
doing
mom likes to tell me I'm special, so I guess I'm above average in some people's eyes.
So we talked a bit about different stuff that you guys do, but and you talked about how some of like the themes that you're looking to improve in the future. Are there any specific like new features that you're planning to roll out that you're willing to tell us? If not, I totally respect that you may want to just keep people on their toes, or it's too early in development to talk about it.
Yeah, I think the thing that I do want to talk about are because we've been such a staple of builds, That's like our main thing. We're looking into like having more builds. So right now we give you the meta build, but we want to have options for AP builds, for crit builds, for um like different variations of specific champions. I think one time when I was playing Varus, I was playing in Clash or something, and the meta build at the time was the lethality build. But what happened was the enemy team was running all sorts of tanky ass, like, Volibears, Malphites, etc. And I was like, this would be way better right now, even though it's not the meta build. It would be way better for my team if I just ran like a crit, like a completely crit attack speed build. But because I was using, U.GG, I was like, like, where do I find this? Like, maybe I could use pro build stats, to figure out what pros are doing with the crit build. I think like that's something that we want to offer is what if we give different variations. I think this also would make it more fun in like ARAM where there's a lot of build variation. So we'll have like AP Rek'Sai or like things that are AP Nasus. Like that might be meta right now, but we'll have regular Nasus or all the different stuff. The first thing that we're rolling out is just separating the canes. That's been always been a problem.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're gonna have, red cane and blue cane. So we'll make sure that those are split out, and then we'll go from there to try to like get the other types of builds.
Oh, that would be awesome for splitting out
Yeah.
canes, because when you look on any stat site, you see, especially when like blue cane building bruiser was a thing. Okay, I see gore drinker. Is this blue cane? Is this red cane? I have no idea which one they're going at. So it's like, for Kane specifically, he's been one that stat sites across the board, not just U.GG, have had extreme difficulty relative to other champions offering helpful insights.
Yeah, in the past, Riot actually didn't include in the stats like whether it was red cane or blue cane, but they actually added that information like maybe in November of last year. And then it's just been it's kind of like reworking our system because we have everything set up like one champion is one champion, and now we have to be like one champion is actually two champions. It's kind of like a little messy in our code. But I think we're close to it, so we'll separate that out and then make sure we can separate all the other types of builds that champions have.
That's super cool. That's like one thing, because we were talking about this little like how sometimes with like Rengar, I'll go either assassin or bruiser, and having just like seeing the different options is something that definitely appeals to me.
Mhm.
I was gonna ask. I just looked it up just to see about other weird variations of things because Kane has the transformation. But I was thinking like Kha'Zix's evolution. But you actually have it on here. I wasn't aware that that was a thing. It's like here's the standard evolution order. It's right above where you're the ability sequence and maxing, which is really cool. I wasn't aware that that's there.
Yeah, we added that a little bit later, and it is kind of hidden, but we have that for Kha'Zix, Victor, and Kai'Sa, who have the evolve abilities.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really cool. Yeah. That's yeah. I mean, I'd love to see that, especially because like I dabble in and out of Kane specifically, so I'm super excited to see that. And then when I try and dabble in, it's like okay, if I see Prowler's Claw, I know it's the blue Kane. But if I see anything else, I have no goddamn idea which Kane it is, and I'm excited to see that. So I can't wait for you to roll that out. I'll definitely be using that feature. That's so sweet. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for telling us some of that. I can't wait for that. So I know that so when you're saying that, talking about the data that Riot feeds for those specific keys that you have, um, I assume that every stat site is. I mean, you're getting the same data from the same central spot. So is there? Because when I look at like different scores or different stats about performance across the different platforms, I'm assuming then the only differences on how someone measures like um, you know, performance score. So like my Pantheon game, for example, I looked it up on like one other one because I saw I got a 77 on U.GG, and I looked it up on like Mobalytics and saw that I had like a 94 or something. So are the differences in statistics specifically for that, but I guess also for win rates and pick rates, those vary a bit stat site to stat site. Is that just what what that site chooses to put in? Like how do you explain differences in the stats specifically? I guess more for win rates and pick rates because those I mean, there's a true number for those. So how
Yeah.
those would be calculated?
Yeah. So I think that's so for the second one, for the performances of players, I believe every company has their own sauce about like how what they want to take into account.
Sure.
So that's why those ones vary a lot, like the OPGG performance score or Mobalytics score and our carry score. Um, so those are mostly actually generated by us,
Okay.
and we figure out what that is. Now the win rates and tier lists I think is really interesting. And I think it's a thing that a lot of people have questions about. So I'll to simplify the problem, I'd say like if we took a look at just one match, you know, then let's say there were two plat players and eight gold one players. So like two plat four players and eight gold one players.
Hmm.
Um, there's a couple ways you could actually make the win rates based off of this data. So if you want to do something where you say, well, I want to treat every plat player as or to backtrack one step, for our stats we have plat plus as our default like tier listing. So if we only wanted to count the plat players, then technically in plat plus, if we had a sample size of this one match, we would have 100% win rate for, let's say, Rengar and our top laner Malphite in plat plus. It'd just be like 100%, right? But then if you look at our gold filter, you would see as like let's say five gold players are on the opposite team, it'd be like 0% for five of the players, and then 100% for three of the remaining gold players. But then you would do some math and be like, this doesn't make sense because the average of all of these stats for the eight players is actually less than 50%, right? So when we were thinking about that problem, we're like, well, so we want to consider every match and average the rank on that match and then consider that match as a gold game. So if we had two plat players and eight gold players, we'd say this is considered a gold game by average elo, and therefore we will consider this entire match in the gold category. So that when you do the average over all the gold matches, the win rates of all the champions should be 50-50. Otherwise, you run into some situation where the higher ranked the player is, they tend to win more. So some sites, if they choose it based on the rank of the player, then challenger players, for example, win like 60% of the time. If you average all the challenger rankings, like if you set the filter to challenger, then it'll be like 60% average, um, which is fine. I think it's like just different ways of how you want to look at the numbers. But I think by default, players, our opinion is that players want to see let's baseline everything to 50%. And then so if we see something 55% or something, we know like relatively how much better that is currently. And that's like our process for doing these statistics. Um, the other problem that people can run into is when do you take the elo of a player? So when you have a match and you say there's two plat players and eight gold players, um, when were they gold and when were they plat? So it's because of the rate limits of the API, you don't want to pull the match and then pull 10 ranks of every player, because this can be expensive. So usually you want to cache the player ranks for a period of time and say, Eric is a plat player. We'll remember this for, 24 hours, and then make sure like we'll rank every match that he is in. We'll consider him to be plat. But it's possible you demote within the first match and you're actually gold one for 9 matches, but we thought we were calculating you as a plat player. Um, so there are some times when the data won't be consistent between all of the different companies, and those are more like technical, like what can we do with the limitations, and what do we think is the correct answer.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for walking us through that. I didn't even consider the complexities and all of that, but that was really great to walk through. And now I understand more why when I'm looking at different champions, there's different win rates, different pick rates, different ban rates, that sort of stuff. And
Mhm.
that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing is for ban rates. Some companies decide whether to do it out of 200% or 100% because you can ban the same champion on both sides,
Hmm.
technically. So we just say if like Yasuo's been banned, even if it's twice, we count it as like he has been banned this game. So it's like 1 out of 1.
Ah,
Whereas it technically sometimes some websites have more than 100% ban rate
yeah.
because like you could technically ban more than 100% games.
I remember when Samira was first released, depending on the site, yeah, she had like 114 or 130% ban rate on some. And I was like, how in the hell is that possible? Because I'd never seen one. And then it's like, oh, well, each team is banning her more often than they're not. Okay, that makes sense.
Everybody's banning.
Yeah. God, Samira on release, that was disgusting. Okay.
Pushing buttons and crazy things are happening.
Seriously, one of the most overpowered releases, I would say. Yeah. So, uh, you know, less about some of the stats, but more just about like the company and the overall. Like, how do you generate the revenue that you need? Is it only from, because on the screen I have like my application, and I don't have the pro version, so there is an ad running for apparently powerful congestion relief right now. But like, is it only ads that you generate? And then also from pro version subscription? Like, how else? How do you generate revenue for the company?
Yeah, I would say majority of the revenue, I want to say like 95+% is from advertisements. And then there is some amount from the pro subscriptions, but most people don't sign up for pro, which is fine. Because currently we only offer, ad free, and it is very helpful for people that sign up for ad free. But we definitely make everything from ads, and it's sustainable. We're profitable, so everything's good. If you have ads on, if you have ad block because it runs too slowly, that's also okay. We've always been about user experience first and foremost. We just want the ads so we can keep the lights on, but everything's going great right now. So
Okay.
if you're on ad block, we're okay with that too.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't have ad block to block the ads specifically for me, but I do see ads which are um, interesting to see what gets advertised to me. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't actually control the like what gets shown to you. So like the ad network is something else where basically they programmatically generate which ads to show you. So we have no control over that technically. Um, we do have control if there's like direct sold ads. So like that can be a situation where let's say Coca-Cola's like, hey UGG, we really like your app and we want Coca-Cola to be part of your app. We can serve that app ad directly. But otherwise, usually it's just a machine that's spitting out ads and we don't know what's going on.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. Um, so I guess I mean the only other thing that I can think of the notes, because we've kind of run through all these, but then we can talk about whatever else as well, is like we haven't talked so much about um, you know the desktop client as much. I mean, we talked about some of the features, but um, your desktop client is, I'd say, relatively new, I would think, compared to some of the other ones, because I used Mobalytics for a bit, but honestly, I gave up Mobalytics because even on my laptop that I used to play on, it had some performance issues, but that laptop was pretty old. But now even on my gaming PC that I bought, it was causing low frame rates and issues like that actually in game, and that's the reason I swapped over. Like, how do you think that just the desktop client, like as a whole, has like, have you seen it been growing like exponentially? Like, how do you think it's performing compared to like your expectations when you launched it?
Mhm. Yeah, so we launched it pretty quickly. I think our first launch for a desktop app was in November of last year.
Mhm.
And we spent maybe like 2 to 3 months to build the initial version of it. And it's performed amazing, like way past our expectations. We knew that like a lot of people had desktop apps, um, but we were always hesitant. Not we were hesitant to do it, but we wanted to make sure our website was really solid, and that people, because I feel like a lot of people find out about u.gg through browser, and there are people who prefer just browser than like downloading a client, especially when they feel like it's not safe or it, like if you could get banned and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but because all of the competitors have desktop apps, we're like, well, let's try it. I think like the main two things that people really appreciate about desktop apps that are not possible on u.gg would be one is like the rune imports, being able to import them directly into your game. And then two is like the jungle timers and like other overlay features, but specifically the jungle timers is something that a lot of players appreciate. Um, So when we made the app, we got a lot of downloads. I think we have close to like 1 million downloads now on the Overwolf App Store. So it's doing great, and we want to continue invest in it and make sure that for us, I think the first key is to reach feature compatibility with all the features that other apps provide,
Mhm.
and also work on reliability. So, like you're saying, like the performance issues you have with Mobalytics, or there are times in the past where BlitzGG would have specific issues with like their data and things like that. I think that can turn away a user, like really quickly. Like this, especially the performance. If this is dropping frames, that's not going to be good. Like in any situation. So those are the things we want to iron out. Like, can we make sure that of the things that a player wants, make sure those things run really, really smoothly. Um, Past that, we can add features and other stuff on top. But first, just get people what they want and do it really, really well.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I haven't noticed any performance issues. But like I remember when I used to use Mobalytics, because Mobalytics, the only time that I really look at it is because they have, I'd say, like some of the most in-depth stats and statistical analysis. But uh, yeah, I would open it and then look at stuff, and then I would like close the app and like disallow it from working, and then afterwards I'd open it again, and that would just be really, really fucking annoying. So I wouldn't, I didn't like doing that. But John and Kaiba, I know you guys have used different desktop apps and stuff. Have you used the U.GG one, and if so, like, what do you think of it?
I've used, let's see, in the past, I've used Porofessor before. I thought that was pretty good for, like you were saying, like in game. The overlay was pretty good, and one thing that I think they would do is like they would have like the like most common build like in game, and then they would do like you could look at pro builds as well, stuff like that. But yeah, and then I mean, I like U.GG. I like the just regular um like desktop browser for U.GG. Um, I just think it looks really clean. Like it's super easy to use and it looks really clean. Um, so I mean that's why I like using it. Super straightforward.
It's
Um,
also like you're saying, it's clean. It's really nice on the eyeballs because like if it's
yeah,
in the evening and I'm playing Clash and I open op.gg, I'm like blinded by the whiteness of it immediately.
yeah,
But
for
having like
sure.
I'd say like an obsidian purple or whatever that color would be, like that's
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's very pleasing to the eyes as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, I guess this isn't something that I prepared, but I maybe you don't have an answer for this. Maybe this isn't something that you've considered so much. But how do you? Because there's a player base in League that have issues with like color differentiation. How do you tackle accessibility or things like that? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
We haven't like specifically, I'd say done and like there's no like toggle for player accessibility. However, I believe our designer actually is like red green colorblind to some degree. So maybe like in his designs he chooses things that naturally work out for people. But we haven't done anything specifically for that, but that's a good point, and we could consider like having a toggle just to transform like the colors to make them like the orange blue versions that they do in League of Legends already.
I keep colorblind mode on in League all the time, and I don't have color differentiation issues. But
Yeah,
it's
I actually
it's
keep it on too because I like
Yeah. Same
the
here.
orange
it's so
instead.
much nicer. It's so much nicer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I see a stream and it's not colorblind mode. I'm like, wait, the health bar is supposed to be green, not yellow. This is what I've been seeing for like 8 years or something. Yeah. Yeah. But even if there isn't a toggle on here, like in my personal life and my work, I deal with accessibility on different stuff like that because I'm a data analyst and I do like visualization design and even with like a lot of these fit the color contrast that that my company would be happy with. They would say like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this has a good enough contrast. Like, cool, we're good to publish this to the public. It's a good design for that for people who have visual accessibility issues. I'd say like U.GG is definitely a good one to go for that. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so I mean that's a lot of the stuff that we had prepared, but what I don't know, Kaib, John, do you have questions here? Because we kind of ran through all of these, not even needing. I didn't even need to force many transitions at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually you're like usually we can't get him to shut up.
That's true.
Now
I
he's
I
running out of
do.
stuff to talk about.
That's true. I do go on and endlessly vamp sometimes. Like sometimes I'll just be talking with my girlfriend and she'll just kind of like stare at me and I'll be going on for like 2 or 3 minutes. And there's been times as well with the pod where people can tell if they've listened to it at the end. It's just like I'm having trouble shutting myself up to end it. And I just keep vamping over and over. And I'll stop because now I'm doing the same sort of thing and I can just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, happy to answer other questions. Um,
I guess one thing is what other, because we've only talked about League specifically, does U.GG offer insights for other games? What do other games in U.GG look like?
yeah, so currently we only offer League of Legends, but we are working on other Riot related products. So the first thing that we are working on is like a Valorant application. And then we hope to tackle like TFT like a little bit later. Um, and we do have a couple other games that we are thinking about exploring, but we want to make sure we're focused on just League and Valorant right now,
Sure.
and until we decide to move on to other stuff.
For
When you
Valor,
said other Riot stuff, I was
Yeah.
really hoping that I was gonna get some inside scoop on the MMO coming out.
No, no, no. It's kind of funny because we were talking with them and we knew about some like interesting stuff they were doing like while they were doing it, but they always kept a hush hush. And my friend works at Riot like as a developer, and I think he was working on Legends of Runeterra, and he's like, yeah, like we're coming out with something soon, like like it'll be good. I'll be like, okay, I'm waiting, like I'm excited. Like Riot Games will finally be Riot Games, and um yeah, so we don't have other information for the other games yet. We'll be focusing on the stuff that exists, which is TFT, Valorant, and Legends of Runeterra. But Runeterra actually doesn't have as extensive of a API compared to the other three games, so that's why that one is like a little bit more difficult to do.
when they launch additional games, because there was a decent amount of games that have been launched recently, do they give you or the other stat sites like a little bit of a heads up, like a month or two before they announce, or even before, to say, hey, we're going to launch this? This may be something you're interested in developing stats or starting to work on the back end for this. Do they give you a heads up, or no, you're in the dark as well?
Yeah, they've actually partnered with specific websites in the past. So I believe they partnered with Mobalytics when Runeterra came out, and so they had like all access to all the cards and stuff beforehand. So when they launched, they pointed at Mobalytics and was like, "Hey, if you guys want to take a look at the cards outside of the game client, you can go to this website and take a look here." I think when TFT came out, they were communicative with us and like, here's how the API is gonna work. Like you can apply for a key here. So it's definitely like a conversation.
Mhm.
But I feel like they will partner with people that they think will help with more smoothly launching the game. And in the past, they were more about like allowing third parties to develop these tools. I think they're, like Riot used to have their own match history, like NA League of Legends slash match or something.
Hmm.
But yeah, so they used to have their own match history page and stuff, but they just deprecated it because they're like, well, why are we spending a lot of time building this and it's not like our main thing? Like we want to make RE skins. We don't want to be making profiles. I don't know if their stance has changed on that, but that was how it was in the past.
Gotcha. And so when you said you were just to follow up on the other games, when you said you're interested in you're looking, building stuff for Valorant or Legends of Runeterra or TFT or other Riot products, are you talking about building? I mean, like additions to the website for those, or also desktop overlays for some of them as well?
Yeah, so we would be looking at both options because of our success with the League of Legends desktop app. So, but we would also want web versions,
Mhm.
and we would want to try to reuse the code if possible, for our desktop app as well as for the website. Like we can make sure we reuse the designs and components.
Gotcha. Does Valorant allow game overlays? I don't. I haven't. I play it some. I don't play it very often, but I didn't even know if they allowed any.
Yeah, they have I'd say like right now the game overlays aren't very complex.
Mhm.
Um I also think like shooters are a different, type of game where you might not need as much information. Like people want to just be good at clicking heads, right? So, um, but some of the I think the main thing that people do like is you can have like essentially a live game of the players in your match, like as you're going in. So that'll probably be what we're focused on for overlays. We think there's some more interesting stuff we can do pre-game and information that we can give players that other sites aren't offering yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Because that's cool. Yeah, I didn't know if Valorant did one, but yeah, I can't imagine like there would be much information I would want to know, like you're saying.
Yeah, the only thing you would want to know is like stuff that is illegal. Like where is this guy?
Or
Like if I
maybe, or maybe would they recommend like, given my economy, should I save this round? Should I not? And I never, I'm
yeah.
someone who I never want to save. Like the only like like you said in Valorant, people just want in shooters, people want to be good at clicking heads, and that's like the one thing in Valorant I'm not good at is clicking
Yeah.
heads. So I'm running around with like shotguns or specters or whatever. Like I just feel really bad saving because I'm terrible at pistol rounds and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Eric's
I'm
just bad at the core concept of shooters, which
I,
is
yeah,
shooting your gun.
yep,
yes, I'm with you. Like that's why I like League of Legends and like other games that I would say require more like breadth of knowledge, just because like I'm not good at the mechanics of shooting heads. So I'm not. I don't play Fortnite, Apex Legends, Call of Duty, any of that stuff. I'm just not good at. That's not like how my hands work.
yeah, gotcha. Yep, when I play Valorant, I've been getting into Yoru just because I like the mind games of it. Because I enjoy playing like Nico or other characters that have like you can do some mind game stuff with them. But um, then when my mind games end, I still can't shoot people very well. So it doesn't work out that well. There's a reason that I've got placed in bronze in Valorant. Like which is it's not to say that bronze is bad, but I'm not as good at Valorant as I am at League, and there's a very clear reason why. I'm not mechanically gifted, and that's okay. So I guess one thing that I thought of, which I maybe did call out in the notes specifically when that we talked about beforehand, but like so for when when you're in Champ Select, it offers like a few phrases that describe the person that you're going to be playing with, not the characters that they're trying to play, but the person. It could be like first time on this champion, or good mood, or bad mood, or some of those. And like how, other than good mood, bad mood is as simple as did they win or lose their last game in first time. That one's pretty self-explanatory. But how do you come up with deciding like which one, what do you want to display there, deciding not necessarily what to call them because that would be the easiest part of it, but like what sort of things you want to track and tell people ahead of time, and how do you balance like a lot of this, because you're a stats application. How do you balance all of this without balance giving information but not information overload as well, because that can be another issue.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. Our approach is we usually try to give like what we think is reasonable, or like how much information we think is reasonable. But then we just test it. Like we build a rapid prototype and test it out, and then we try to put in front of users and see if what their kind of reaction is. And then so we'll have some user tests for people, but also we'll be tracking metrics like, are people using this feature? Are people like hovering over these tabs or not? And generally, do people like them? I think we get a lot of feedback from players. People are very vocal about like, hey, like this tag is useless, or like this thing is bad, stuff like that. And then that's how we like iterate on those tags and try to make them more useful over time.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's cool
Yeah.
because I've noticed a couple of different things that have been not useful, but or not completely useless or trash. But there's been things I'm like, I wish that this maybe would have looked into this or whatever. But
Mhm.
maybe I'll click the settings button or the feedback, the little flag, and send some feedback
Yeah,
then.
yeah. Yeah, just send us feedback. We have somebody that does customer support, so they always reply to every email that we have. And we definitely take the approach of listening to our users. I think that's like where we get the best information, and which makes sense, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
like people using your app are the ones that are gonna tell you what they want or don't want.
Okay. Gotcha. Cool. I mean, any other questions or so I guess you said that you play League and stuff like that now, and you're not great at Valorant, which none of us are really all that good. But when you play League, what sort of champs you play in? What role do you play? Because we talked all about the stat site, but League is what got you into this. So what do you play?
Yeah, so I've been playing ADC recently, and I kind of like fill for teams. So like I enjoy playing Clash, so we played Clash the previous weekend, and then I was playing with my friends who were bronze scrubs, and somehow we ended up being like matched against plat and gold players, and it sucked. But then I was playing mid, and I like playing Victor or control mages. And then normally I play ADC, so I've been playing a lot of Tristana, Jinx, and Kai'Sa. Um, but if I my best role is support. I just we were talking a little bit before the call, and I hit diamond on support in like season I want to say season 7. That was the peak of my ranked career. But then everybody gives me shit because it's on support, so it doesn't count. But if I were to play support now, I think I'd still be really good.
I would never give you shit for that because I think that top is probably the easiest to get carried up there because you're kind of on an island. Support, you have to be both managing bot lane, but also like a lot of times they're the shot callers or the macro decision makers, and it's there's a lot of pressure there for sure. But also support in season 7 was a different beast to where it is developed into in season 12. Like that's such a dynamic position.
Yeah, what my rationale at the time was is that support in season 7, like people didn't want to play it. It was the least picked role. It was like wasn't good. So I thought like if everyone else is bad at this role and I'm actually decent, then like I'm gonna win a lot of games, right? Because the difference, like assuming the rest of my team is the same. So then I played a bunch of support, and now it's like now they've made support a different animal. It has different gold gain and stuff like that. And like you're saying, like jungle seems to be the most like filled, or you never get auto filled in jungle now. Um, so maybe jungle is the next role for me because you also make a lot of macro decisions, which I think is my strength. It's not the mechanics; it's like the macro stuff. Yeah.
You win with your brain, not with your ability to click
Yeah.
and move your screen fast. Okay.
Yeah. But people able to click and move screen fast can definitely destroy me. So feels bad.
Yeah. Yeah. John's good at both of those. I've played against him. He's good at
Why not both? Why not both?
exactly.
Some of us don't have all of that talent, John.
Or you can be like Kaib and be good at neither then.
Oh.
I'm just kidding, Kaib.
Eric, play me in literally any shooter. You pick the game, and I will dumpster you. Okay? I just started playing League. Give me a break.
If Fallout New Vegas had a multiplayer mode, I would play you in that.
No, you wouldn't because you'd get dropped.
Nuh-uh. I got you, man. I'll just walk up with a grenade launcher and you'll be toast. But
Okay.
but there's no multiplayer for that, so I guess we'll never know. It's okay. So okay. Um, how active? Because I know that you GG. That's how I found you guys was through the and got this connection was through the Discord. How active is your Discord and your community around the app? Like, what's the community guys have tried to build look like?
Mhm. I'd say like we do our best to work with Discord, and there are a good amount of users there. But I don't think our Discord's like super active. In terms of like people finding different players to play with or like engagement. But it's not like our main focus. I
Hmm.
think at one point in time we want to try to add a little bit more social elements to U.GG. One feature that I think is really good that somebody requested, which is not exactly talking to another person, but they wanted to take notes about players in their games, at least personal notes. So like if somebody feeds a lot in your game, you can like add a tag afterwards and be like, this person feeds on, um, Jin or whatever. And then you'll just have that note. It'll be attached to that player. So if you ever get into another queue with that player, you'll have that note there. Um, we were thinking about doing stuff like adding comments to the end of post game. So like imagine like every post game match you can open it up and see comments there. But then we're like we're scared that people are just gonna flame each other because that's like what happens at the end of a post game. And Riot changed like their post game too, right? Where it doesn't automatically go into that chat channel.
Yeah.
Um, but we are looking to support like more social features in UGG itself. So we don't have too much like in our Discord and stuff like that.
Okay,
Uh,
that's that.
that'd
But
be
we
pretty
do
funny.
reply to all feedback emails. So if you want to like get in touch with us or figure out how to improve our applications, we do want to communicate, but we prefer email just because then we have like thing that we can reply to, whereas chat it can like quickly go through and we'll miss things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that is pretty cool. The idea of like having like the little tag with the player like that comes up in the app like if you get in a game with them, because then I mean if it's someone like that you're talking about like hey they just feed on Jin every time, you could just use that as your one dodge for
Yeah,
the
like we
for the
could
session.
make it more robust, but there are like we could make it so everybody could see those comments. Like if I comment on Eric and be like, "This guy, he always feeds," right? And then John, you see Eric in your game and you're like, "This guy, okay." Like Alan was saying that he's got like 20 other reports. But it could be like I don't know if we want to open up to everybody because it could be abused, right? Like if
Yeah.
Eric just carries a game or whatever, he's not being toxic at all, but people are like just mad at you for some reason, then they'll
Because I'm
just
a
report
jungler
you.
and everyone's mad at junglers. It
Yeah,
happens. Yep.
if like this guy
Yeah.
didn't come
No,
top, right?
Eric's just toxic. He's a toxic player.
So we'll see how we want to like I think with social features it becomes like how do you navigate it, make sure people aren't using it inappropriately and stuff, and that's things we want to be conscious of.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense because I was thinking like, when you're talking about that sort of stuff, oh, maybe there's like an up arrow or a down arrow. Was this person enjoyable to play with? But then how many people actually use like a lot of people, the honor system that's baked into the League client that Riot collects, how many like a lot of people don't even use that necessarily. So it's like and they only offer negative feedback. It's like how much would people actually hit the up button? Would they only hit the net down button? Like I totally get that there's the selection bias of people using those and how to account for that. Like that's a very good consideration. I didn't think of that at face value. Yeah.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay. How, one thing I would say that I would just I mean you were talking earlier about improving some of the stat sites. So one thing I would say if I had on my wish list, which this is completely non-binding, although I'd like it a lot, would be to add carry score to ARAM games. That would be sweet because I'm an ARAM god and I carry every single one of my games, which definitely not true, but um, that'd be sweet to see. I know for sure.
Yeah, at one point in time we were really considering improving our ARAM profiles. So like OPGG is centered around ranked player profiles. And actually, like I don't know if you can get your ARAM stats necessarily. Like the ARAM games exist, but I don't know if they exist in aggregate or yada yada. So we were thinking about like, what if we just created an ARAM profile? Because as I'm getting older, like my preferred queue type is actually ARAM. So for players like me with worse hands, like ARAM, we can give more in-depth statistics, like maybe troll stuff. I don't know. And then, like you're saying, like give carry score for ARAM players.
Yeah.
So yes, we will think about it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, because I'm often running full health Nautilus, and I need to see how I'm doing compared to other full health Nautiluses. It's not very popular, I'm sure, but it's hilarious just to sit there with the anchor boy and have 4,000 health and very low cooldowns and stuff, and using Sunfire for like 70 damage per second. It's a lot of fun.
It's like my fourth item on Karthus and ARAM. How like what's my win percent taking Axiom Arc on Karthus so I can just ult all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be sweet to see. I don't know of any stat sites that do like dynamic items based on, what you've built so far and what they would recommend after that.
Mhm.
There's obviously,
Yeah.
the overlays with items and stuff, but dynamic items, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, we were looking into dynamic items like as you build. The issue becomes like sample size gets pretty small.
Sure.
For and actually like most games of League of Legends have 3 items, including boots. So it doesn't get too deep. But it is something that we were thinking about, like, can we recommend items to players as they're playing the game, and depending on like enemy team comp, it like adjusting for everything. Like what would we want to recommend people?
Okay. Yeah, I could totally see how sample size would be a bit of an issue there. So there though. Yeah. Yep. What's your favorite ARAM champion to play?
My favorite ARAM champion is definitely one of the pokers, like Xerath or Jace. It's like annoying, but those those are the most fun when you just like like Nidalee spear somebody and then they just die. I
Yep.
think that's really fun.
Those are really fun. Yeah, I ask because that's our question of the week right now in our Discord, so I'm sure people would love to
Mhm.
hear about that. But yeah, and I love pokers as well. Well, okay, I like playing Zoe, which is kind of pokish. Although Zoe has, I don't understand how Zoe has a bad win rate across like anywhere you look, patch by patch, whatever in ARAM, because she's so good if you know what you're doing with her. But I guess maybe there's a bit of a skill floor to it. But other than that, I love to build non-lethality champions lethality, like
Oh,
like playing Prowler's Claw set.
yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. What's like your favorite what's your favorite like off meta thing to run if you're feeling, you've had a beer or two in you and you're feeling like, okay, I kind of want to just like have some fun, and I'm not, going like Teemo jungle or anything, or something like Yumi jungle, not something that's totally troll, but like what's your favorite off meta thing to kind of go?
Yeah, I like playing like attack speed bard. It's pretty troll. But I've always like when I was playing a lot of support, I mained like Thresh and Bard because those were like the skillful support champions. And then I ended up getting to like plat and I couldn't get higher, so then I just played Brand the rest of the way. But I always have like a soft spot in my heart for Bard, so I have like the Bard Cup, for example.
Oh,
And
nice.
I just think he's like a really funny champion, and it's fun hitting with the chimes like super quickly. So that would be my favorite off meta champion.
What skin do you run on Bard?
I was running the winter one,
Snow
the
Day
winter.
Bard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
That's
my favorite Bard skin.
that's the best one. That's the right
Which
choice.
I love playing with a good bard.
Yeah, and
It
then you
makes
just like
the game
catch them. Yeah, it's like a pretty. I feel like it's a pretty hit or miss champion. Like you just miss everything and then you're completely useless, or you hit everything and it's like godlike. Yeah,
yeah, and you're like, this bard is absolutely insane.
yeah,
The thing that, yeah, a good bard totally transforms, like in ARAM for sure, but also in like Summoner's Rift, a good bard totally transforms the way that the game shakes out. Given that like he doesn't need to be in lane to get XP, and all, it's just like totally game warping. And a lot of people, I'm assuming, as well as myself, have troubles trying to understand how to play the game with a bard in it, because
Yeah,
it's totally
yeah,
changes everything.
yeah. Like I'll have. It's so nice when I'll be like, for example, like there was the one time I was playing. I had a bard on my team, and I was playing Graves, and we were the top side of the map, and I was ganking bot, and I just walk up to like the part that's like the alcove where the blast cone is to go into like where the bot bush is. And he would always just walk right up there, sit there for like a second, and then just give me a portal, and we would just run through there, and he would tank with me, and we would just go wild. It was so much fun. Like when, but then on like the flip side, like I'll know when I'm playing against a good bard when I'm trying to chase him. He is literally like 1 HP, and then he like gets like 3 portals off, slows me like 10 times, hits every Q, and I'm just like, okay, fine, you can leave, you can leave.
Another thing with Bard that like as junglers we have to pay attention to so much is now that he can deny Rift Herald shoves as well.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
a good Bard from a bad Bard, where once Rift Herald is taken, Bard's not on the map. He's just waiting and looking, where is the Rift Herald going to be dropped, and I'm going to ult that tower. Like it's just
Gosh.
he's just hiding in the jungle waiting for that. That's so
So
frustrating.
it feels so bad, especially because like I've had it like where like a plate, I'll set it up with my mid laner. The tower will be at like 2.5 plates. Like the rift's gonna one shot it. Like I have some vision, and then like it's about to hit. All of a sudden, Bard just comes out of nowhere, ults the turret from a mile away, and then I'm like, all right, well, I guess we don't get any plates or anything. Just like it feels so bad.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know what it is that gives you that sort of sick satisfaction of making us junglers mad, but
but yeah, it feels so good. It feels good when people are like in a choke point and you just hit them with like, and they're trying to run away, so they all spread out, and then they all get hit by a huge Bardal, and then everyone's just like, fuck, right? Because like Oriana's there, she's gonna ult you guys, like it's gonna be terrible. That feels great.
yeah.
So the worst is when you throw a Bardal and then you mess it up. So like you're trying to save your teammate, but you end up getting him killed and saving the enemy somehow. So it's just like really bad for you. Yeah, those, and then everyone's question mark pinging you. That feels kind of bad. But then you just like type like I'm barred, like it's just like some question mark or weird stuff, and people are like, whatever. He's just a weird dude.
That example of like saving the enemy and saving yourself just makes me think of there was a game, an LCK game. It was like T1 against Gen G like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, where um, Gen G were totally gonna win the fight and win the series off of it, and then it was like a normal season game, but then their support throws a Bard ult right on and just it total like because there was a I think it was a Volibear engaging onto someone, throws the Bard ult on top, totally negates it. Volibear comes out after his ult's already gone. Like it was disastrous to watch. It was so like he totally fucked up the whole fight. And then I'm sure his team was just like, God damn it, Bard. I don't think they played Bard the rest of the season or anything, but it was like that sort of shit happens. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've run through basically everything that we wanted to talk about or ask you. Is there anything that you wanted to plug other than, the u.gg application and the website? Is there anything else like do you guys run events? Is there anything that you wanted to plug or raise awareness about?
Not really. Yeah, I just want to plug u.gg. Thanks for everyone listening that uses the app. We're always really grateful for anyone who just uses the app and enjoys it. And we're going to continue to make the features better. We want to be the best app at everything. That's hard to do, but that's like what our goal is. We want to be the best League of Legends desktop client, the best website, the best app.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, with that, we'll wrap up. So yeah, thanks, Alan, for taking the time. This has been a great interview. Like this is definitely one of the best Patreon episodes that we've recorded. I'll say for sure. And then I'm sure everyone else is gonna love when this gets released as well. So thanks for taking the time to come on with us. And I hope I don't see your Bard in games because I want my Rift Herald drop to go off well. But yeah, thanks for taking the time. And this has been great.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. You've been in contact with me, and it's I've been here and there. I'm busy with other stuff, so thanks for like getting everything ready and getting everything prepared. And thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks. So, with that, this has been the u.gg interview with Alan Patreon episode, and thanks for taking the time, and we'll wrap up here. So, take it easy, everyone. Cool. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.